What's going on, everyone? Honda Fit for Adventure here, and today we'll be adding some sound deadener to the doors of my 2015 Honda Fit. Now, I previously covered the floorboards and underneath the headliner, and I must say covering the headliner is a must for a roof rack user. While I think investing in a set of quality tires is much easier than covering your floorboards. Since we already added the sound deadener to the headliner and floorboard areas, I wasn't expecting that much of a difference in noise reduction. So roughly 80 decibels at 70 miles per hour. I'm going to say we're about 80 decibels at 70 miles per hour. There is a little wind today, so that might add a little bit of noise to it. Let me turn on my defrosters and we'll go back to the garage and do an audio check. What there is going to be a big difference in is the audio quality. The mids and highs sounded about the same, while the bass had a bit more punch and kick to it. I know we're just using a cheap app, but on our first test we recorded an average of 74 decibels, while on our second test we recorded an average of 80 decibels. Got an average of 80 and a max of 86. Now, I know there's different ways and materials of how to help sound deaden your car, but I chose this type because it was one of the few companies that also advertised a heat reflective backing similar to a space blanket on the back of the mats. And as a car camper, I'm looking for any way possible to help maintain the heat inside of my car. I already made a video covering the heat retention after adding the sound deadener to the roof and the floor, so I'll leave a link to that video in the description below. But for now, check out these two pictures. Here's where I applied the sound deadener to the flat surface areas between the crossbars, and in the next photo, we can actually see the heat loss coming through the crossbars after a fresh snowfall. Fascinating. Anyways, let's get on with the install. Once again, I already have a video on my channel covering how to remove the door panels, link in the description, so I'll quickly cover this. Remove the first screw from the door handle, pop up the window control, disconnect the wiring harness, remove the second screw, and then pop off the door card. The rear door is about the same, plus one extra step, but we'll cover this when we get there. Adding the sound deadener is easy, but there are a few things that you should be aware of. 1. Wear some old clothes. The adhesive is really strong and messy and it doesn't come off. 2. Don't cover any electrical. Again, this stuff is really strong and you don't want to damage any wiring trying to peel it off. 3. Leave an empty square so you or a mechanic have access to the inside of your door to replace a lock or a motor in the future. You can cover this up, just make sure that you draw a square over the mat so you know where to safely cut into the door in the future. 4. Make sure not to cover any bolts or push-in tab inserts. There are several bolts along the bottom that hold the window regulator in place. You will need to work around these. I went a little wide on my first door, covering up some of the push-in tab inserts, and then later poking them out with a screwdriver. I wouldn't recommend this as it made reinstalling the door card a bit more difficult, but overall it went back on. On the other 3 doors, I made sure not to go as wide, and the other door panels went back on like stock. To put the door card back on, slide the panel over the handle and line it up with the push-in tabs. You may want to reinsert the screw by the door handle first to make lining up the push-in tabs to the door frame much easier. Once the door card has been popped back in, we can then put the second screw back into place. The next step is to connect the wiring harness to the window switches and then slide the switch panel back into place. As I mentioned earlier, removing the rear door card is the exact same process as the front, with the extra step of removing this plastic cover over in the corner here. Once this small cover has been removed, we can then carry on with removing the rear door panel. This box of sound deadener came with 34 sheets totaling 16 pounds or a little under a half a pound per sheet. I used a total of 14 sheets, roughly 3 sheets for each of the front doors and 4 sheets for each of the back doors, adding a total weight of 6.5 pounds to the vehicle. I used up any scrap materials by applying them to the inside of the rear hatch. To wrap up this video, I'd say adding the sound deadener to my doors did more of improving the speaker audio quality than it did for improving any noise reduction. And as an added bonus, it did help prevent some frost buildup while I was out car camping in sub-zero temperatures. Look at that mad frost. We got some on the line, the door sill. Back hatch is a little frosty. So I just added some sound deadener to my doors, and there's not much frost on the door anymore compared to last year. So I know it's super cold in the car, but I think insulating the doors actually did something.